I've been reading scary stories on this forum for a few months now, and after some hesitation, I've decided it's time to tell my story. My wife and I got married almost 24 years ago. We have 3 lovely children, a nice home, and what I believed was a strong marriage. After our second child was born in 2002, we made the choice for my wife to stay home with the kids. I had a good job that allowed us to do this without too much financial trouble. She appeared content being at home with the children, and everything seemed perfect. In 2008, our third child was born, and we decided that she would continue to stay at home until the kids started school. Fast forward to 2019, our youngest was 11 years old, and she no longer needed a parent at home full-time. So we agreed that it was time for my wife to go back to work. I've read a lot on these forums, and by now you probably have an idea of what's happening. In July 2019, my wife started working through a temporary agency, and she was really excited about it. She made many new friends at work, enjoyed her job a lot, and couldn't stop talking about it. I was happy to see that she seemed to have smoothly returned to work, and it felt like she was starting a new chapter in her life. During the next few months, I began noticing some strange things about my wife, whom I thought I knew really well. She was always on her phone, texting with a smile on her face. If I happened to walk by, she'd quickly turn off her phone. I didn't think much of it, and figured she was just chatting with her new friends from work. Now, let's jump ahead to Christmas morning. We had bought our youngest daughter a new iPhone as a gift. I decided to set it up for her and turned on iMessages, which connected my phone to my wife's and our daughter's. To keep it short, I immediately started receiving my wife's messages. I quickly scrolled through a few of these messages and saw expressions of deep love and excitement about meeting someone. There were a ton of texts sent in a very short time. I couldn't read them all in detail because my in-laws and youngest kids were around. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I kept thinking it must be some kind of joke from one of her female friends at work. But eventually my wife noticed that my phone was buzzing with her messages and demanded my phone. I refused to give it to her, and the look she gave me made it clear that I had a big problem. I didn't let anyone, not even my wife, know what was going on. Later that day, our extended family came over, and I continued to hide my feelings and tried to make the best of our family Christmas. But inside, I was completely devastated and in utter shock about what was happening to me. I knew my wife had to work the next day, so I decided to keep an eye on the text messages to see what I could find out. And let me tell you, I discovered a lot throughout the day. The text messages between my trusted wife and the other man were heartbreaking, shocking, and infuriating. Some of the messages revealed that they felt a kind of love they had never experienced before, talked about holding each other, and, luckily for me, the guy was careless enough to put his last name after my wife's first name in one of the texts. My wife called him by his full name in one of the messages, and that's exactly what I needed to confirm my suspicions. I was so shaken and angry that I was literally trembling. I was driving my daughter and her friend home from a skating outing, but my mind was racing with 1,000 thoughts. When I got home, I immediately started doing some online research. I managed to find information about the other man. Eventually, I stumbled upon an obituary for one of his family members and discovered that he was married with children. Thanks to social media, it didn't take long for me to confirm that the other man was still happily married, as his wife had a happy picture of them together on her Facebook page. Realizing the storm that was about to break loose, I quickly sent my son and daughter to go see a movie. While I continued to search online, I managed to find a phone number for the other man's wife. I called her and shared all the information I had uncovered. I sent her screenshots of the text messages exchanged between our 2 unfaithful spouses. I apologized and explained how sorry I was for bringing this to her attention, but I believed she had every right to know what I had just discovered. She seemed just as shocked as I was. Regrettably, she was in a situation similar to mine, a long-term marriage, and completely blindsided by this happening. Unfortunately, she chose to speak to me in front of her adult children. Once the other man's wife had the whole story, it was time to confront my wife and her new boyfriend. I sent a text to both of them, letting them know that his wife and I were aware of their relationship. I immediately called my wife and told her to come home right away. I had never felt so betrayed, angry, and justified all at the same time. My wife's initial response to me on the phone was that she couldn't leave work. I can't even recall what kind of angry words I shouted, but she quickly made her way home. I sat alone in a dimly lit room the day after Christmas, reflecting on my life during the 30 minutes it took for my wife to return home. I couldn't help but think about how hard I had worked for my family over all these years, and yet my wife had chosen to throw away everything we had built together. As I waited, I seethed with anger. When she finally got home, I wasted no time and confronted her with a firm, "Start talking." She sat there, completely devoid of emotion, and asked what I wanted to know. I was taken aback by her lack of emotion, especially considering what was about to unfold. I lost control and unleashed a furious, screaming outburst like I had never experienced before. I demanded to know how long she had been having an affair, using some strong language, and she reluctantly began sharing the sordid details. As I continued to shout, I even threw some picture frames and a lamp, completely losing my composure as I listened to the heartless account of her affair. I couldn't help but think that I would be the one losing everything: my family. My oldest daughter was already grown, but I still had a son in high school and a daughter in junior high. The idea of only seeing my children on weekends was horrifying. I felt the situation was incredibly unjust, losing my family over my wife's fling. How could someone I had trusted completely do this to me? I also questioned myself for ignoring the signs, which in retrospect were there all along. Eventually, I was emotionally and physically drained, so I moved out of our bedroom and into a spare one. Luckily, I had some time off from work due to the holiday season, which gave me a little breathing room. My wife apologized several times, but I made it clear that she was not welcome to stay in the house if she ever communicated with the other man again. I insisted she quit her job and find another one. For the next few days, we spent time talking, shedding tears, and trying to figure out what to do next. I made a promise to myself to try to mend our relationship. I looked for a marriage counselor, attended a marriage seminar, and read several books on ways to fix a marriage. During the first few months, I believe I was handling the situation as well as could be expected. I didn't share a bed with my wife for almost 6 weeks. Eventually, I moved back into our bedroom just before a trip to see my daughter graduate from military training. This was with the in-laws, who were completely unaware of what had happened. It felt like we were rekindling our feelings for each other. I made a conscious effort to set my anger aside and focus on the positive aspects of our relationship. Now, fast forward to the present. The emotions are still very raw, and I'm struggling with bitterness. I try to maintain a cheerful facade for our family and friends, keeping this marriage tragedy a secret from everyone except our marriage counselor. I convinced my wife to confide in her sister, knowing that she could provide valuable support and guidance during this difficult time. Luckily, she has been a tremendous help to my wife in dealing with the aftermath of this disaster. I remain confused, deeply angry, and unable to fully trust my wife. It's draining to push my emotions aside and focus on my demanding job and my children. I still love my wife and can't imagine daily life without her and my children, but I'm uncertain about how to overcome the trauma we've experienced. Our marriage wasn't perfect. We had grown apart over the years, getting more involved in our children's activities, work, and other distractions. Still, I believed we had a strong marriage. I was married to a woman I trusted completely, and I never once thought she'd be unfaithful. Well, that's the foolish, naive me. And now here I am. I'm determined to mend my marriage and life without ever letting my family, especially my kids, discover any of this. It's an incredible burden for a man trying to keep his family together. It took me about an hour and a half to write this out. I feel a bit embarrassed and hesitant about sharing my story, but here it is. I hope that by sharing my experience, it can help someone else who might be going through a similar storm in their marriage. Thank you for your suggestions, shared stories, and general advice. To answer a few of your questions. STDs. Yes, I absolutely mandated that she be immediately tested for the full array of STDs. I had shockingly learned that she had unprotected sex with the other man. 2. I unfortunately asked for all the details of the affair. I received the full XXX version. I still have daily moments of full-fledged rage over what I had learned. I will never look at her again as I had before the affair. I kept all screenshots of the exchange between the two. I feel it is sometimes detrimental, as I still occasionally read some of the messages, but I will surely continue to retain these messages. My WW was apologetic and asked for forgiveness repeatedly. She stated she would do anything to take it back. She said she and the OM immediately broke things off when I found out, and texted both of them stating I had provided his wife with all the details. I texted the other man's wife the following morning after learning the extent of the A and provided her with the details of what I had learned. I also informed her that if I ever caught wind that my WW communicated with the OM again, that she would be kicked to the curb. 6. I have struggled with the same point many of you made in your replies. My wife has done very little to reconcile. I've done all the work in this area. I pointed this out to her several times, a few times in heated conversation, and once or twice with the counselor. She stated that she doesn't know what to do, and she's always depended on me to take the lead on nearly everything. Well, obviously not everything, since she took the lead on screwing a co-worker in the parking lot on several occasions. Lame excuse. This is an issue that I've struggled with, even more so reading your replies. I'm really struggling with this now more than ever. I will not tell my children. Regardless of what my wife did, she is a fantastic mother to our children. I owe it to them and her not to tarnish their relationship over the affair. It was a piss-poor decision, yes, but I don't want this to overshadow the relationship she has with them. This is a sacrifice I am 100% willing to make. 8. I also refuse to tell her parents. IMO. This is a vindictive, malicious move. The A is the roadblock between she and I, not her parents. They will always be her parents. I, on the other hand, could become an X if the R doesn't work out. I will let her tell her family if she opts to do so. For as pissed off as I am, I still respect what we had and love her and her family. Informing them of the A would not be helpful to anyone. 9. Thank you for the advice on Goodreads. I ordered The Body Keeps Score tonight. 10. My wife and I informed my children of our marital problems within days of D-Day. It was a needed conversation, as it was clear there was a problem when I moved into the guest bedroom. I didn't share any details, only that we were seeking help and that we both loved them very much and would be taking time to work on our issues. I am certain the A ended when I contacted the OM, his wife, and my wife, although I still don't trust my wife. She's now a proven liar and cheater, both of which I am still in total disbelief could have become of my wife. Her entire family, siblings, parents, grandparents, etc., have been in long-term, monogamous relationship. Nobody in her immediate family has ever been divorced. She has offered her phone, social media accounts, etc. to me to inspect. I refuse to look through her accounts. IMO, it is far too easy to create hidden accounts, email addresses, etc. That can be very difficult to trace. I would be stupid to think she would use her regular accounts to communicate with an AP. I made it crystal clear that I have my ways to investigate, and if I ever found even a hint of a problem, that I would immediately end the relationship. Sound. Although I am the victim in this situation, I refuse to allow myself to become the victim. This will only make me stronger and hopefully a little wiser. I spent a few weeks feeling sorry for myself, only to realize that I've overcome a lot in my life, and I sure as hell refuse to let this consume me. 14. I did begin drinking a lot more than usual. I know it's not healthy, but it numbed the pain. I try to make a conscious effort to reduce the alcohol, but it still helps take the edge off a little. I have been exercising. I lost about 15 lbs. In a matter of a few weeks. I had no appetite and just felt miserable. I've since been eating healthy and making a point to get a good workout several times a week. My wife and I have been talking a lot more in the past few months than we have in years. We've been very honest about the challenges we're going through, and we've discussed why she made the choice to have the affair. She's openly shared how the other man, OM, made her feel emotionally charged, which eventually led to the physical affair. I'm usually a reserved and private person, not one to express my emotions to others. This created a gap in our marriage that the OM took advantage of and apparently discovered a side of my wife that I wasn't aware of. Once that emotional connection was established, the secret meetings started happening. Yes, I still feel really angry every time I think about this. 7. Lately, things have been getting better. We've intentionally set aside time to be alone together several times a week. Sometimes it's a quick moment for uninterrupted conversations, and occasionally we run errands together. It seems like things are improving, but I've experienced a setback in recent weeks. I keep examining my situation and reminding myself that I don't deserve all the problems I'm dealing with. In recent weeks, I've been grappling with anger issues, and I'm not quite sure what triggered it. I'm still committed to repairing our relationship, but I've also contemplated the what-ifs of divorce, D. My wife can see this internal struggle, and I can tell she's approaching me with caution. I guess with time, I'll learn to manage these emotions I never knew were inside me. Once again, I want to express my gratitude for all your advice. Hearing your stories has been incredibly helpful for me. I distinctly remember 24's story because it was one of the first ones I came across and followed due to its similarity to my own situation. This forum is filled with unfortunate and awful tales, but I've come to realize that it's a training ground for survivors and warriors, created by people who were once victims themselves. I'm still under an immense amount of stress right now, but understanding what many of you have learned from your similar experiences has been a great help. I never would have imagined that dealing with something like this would be so incredibly challenging. It's truly the most difficult situation I've faced in my entire life. Thank you for making it a little more bearable. Here is my reaction to this story. I've always believed in advocating for divorce when infidelity is involved. In some cases, reconciliation might be considered, but it should come with certain conditions. Some of these conditions involve exposure to family members and their children because there should be consequences for one's actions. However, in this specific case, not only are there no consequences for the wayward wife's actions, but the original poster has shielded her from taking responsibility for what she did. It's no surprise then that she isn't putting in the effort required for the reconciliation process. The original poster has essentially given his wife a free pass to potentially cheat on him again at her next job or become more skilled at hiding an affair. The truth is, she cannot be trusted, and she seems immature. It wouldn't take much for another co-worker with persuasive skills to manipulate her into cheating once more, given the right